So if you feel like you sometimes get like a metallic taste in your mouth, in this video I'm going to help you understand the most common underlying causes for this problem and possible troubles that this could be a sign of, along with steps you can take to improve the situation. Let's jump in.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So before we jump into this first one, which is medications, remember I'm not a doctor, I'm not giving anybody medical advice, but I'll share some links in the description below this video to some studies if you want to dig deeper into some of these topics. But one possible cause for a metallic taste in your mouth is a medication that you might be taking. So you might just want to Google whatever medications you're taking and see if a possible side effect is a metallic taste in your mouth. And that might help you understand what's going on. Maybe you want to talk to your doctor about switching to something that makes it doesn't feel like I have a pipe in my mouth going on. Another thing can be pregnancy. It's common to see that, and we'll talk about some things going on. But when a woman is pregnant, it kind of can change the way that her body is operating because a lot of the priorities go towards building this human being. It takes a lot of resources, a lot of effort to build an entire human being, so that can change the way that the body might be operating a little bit. Another thing is pesticides, and whether a person is spraying pesticides in or around their house, or they're just consuming vegetables that are not organic, that are sprayed with pesticides in order to keep the bugs off of them so that they can make it to market. So if someone has an excessive amount of pesticides in the system, that can create some taste disturbances that could come about feeling kind of like a metallic kind of taste. And another thing is heavy metals. So these are some just common, obvious kind of things for some people. But heavy metals can be accumulated in the body enough that it could start to create some taste disturbances. And these heavy metals could come from consuming too many of specific types of fish. Maybe you're using cookware that has a lot of heavy metals. A lot of these non-stick cookwares that are just generically made, it's very common for them to put off metals that can go into the body through the food that you're consuming. It's also possible to have a lot of heavy metals from conventional dental work that may be done. And in a lot of conventional dental work, they'll use a lot of metals, and it's really funny that they have all these regulations about how they have to use these metals, and you have to wear these types of gloves, and when you dispose of these metals, they must go into this toxic waste disposal system that you have to get rid of them. But when I put it in your mouth, then it's just fine. Okay, so that could be a problem if you have a lot of metals in your mouth. That can be leaching into the body and creating that issue. And also tap water. If somebody's just drinking water right out of the tap, that can contain some heavy metals that could accumulate in the body and create these disturbances. Another big one is zinc deficiencies. And if a person has a significant zinc deficiency, it can create smell or taste removal, like where they won't really smell or taste anything. But if someone just has a small deficiency where it's a borderline situation, it can create a problem where they just have some weird tastes in their mouth. And that can kind of result in a metallic type taste. And something that's interesting is that zinc deficiency, there's some medications that could deplete zinc. But pregnancy, you know, it takes a lot of the minerals in the system and it puts them towards building this human being, leaving fewer of these minerals available for the mother to exist as a human being. So that's possible, and that may be why we see some of these things with pregnancy. Another thing that a lot of people have an opinion on, and I'll put some links in the description below for people that just kind of feel like bile or gallbladder issues can lead to this metallic taste. And some people will say that, well, if you have like bile reflux, where bile is refluxing back into the stomach because that bile has like a bitter structure to it, that can create some taste disturbances that may be viewed as a metallic type taste. But when we're looking at this bile thing, it's also interesting that I found this study that was on taste and smell disturbances in patients with gastroparesis and gastroesophageal reflux disease. And in this study, they said that taste and smell abnormalities are prominent in gastroparesis and GERD patients. Abnormalities in taste and smell are significantly correlated with both gastroparesis and GERD symptom severity. So they're saying that the more severe that the gastroparesis or the GERD, that the more severe that the taste disturbances could be. Awareness of this high prevalence of taste and smell dysfunction among patients with gastroparesis and GERD may help to better understand the food intolerances these patients often have. So they're giving us another clue here when they're talking about this food intolerance. And when we were talking about before about bile reflux, bile is made in the liver and then it's stored in this gallbladder. But some people have an issue where bile is refluxing back up into the stomach. And we have a video that we'll link in the description below about bile reflux and bile reflux gastritis. And basically what we found in the studies that we found is that bile will sometimes reflux back up into here when there's not enough stomach acid to acidify that food correctly, because it's once the food is acidified that is what triggers it to leave the stomach. And it's that acidity coming down here into the duodenum that actually triggers the gallbladder to drop the bile down there. So when there's not enough stomach acid, which is really common, I mean, millions of people turn off stomach acid on purpose every day, but even beyond that, there's a wide variety of reasons that a person might not be making enough stomach acid. And when the food is not being acidified correctly, it doesn't move at the proper pace. And then everything doesn't really move in the right direction. This is like a triggering system. This food being acidified triggers it to leave the stomach, and when it comes down into the duodenum, that acid triggers the gallbladder to drop this down. These other things trigger these other things from the pancreas. So this is all like a step-by-step process that this digestive function takes. And when one thing isn't working, it can create troubles in other areas. And we're looking at the reflux aspect of it. Well, we view reflux as a problem that comes about from a lack of stomach acid, not too much stomach acid like advertisers want us to believe, because there's a valve at the bottom of the esophagus called a lower esophageal sphincter, and it opens so food can come in, and then once the food is acidified, it closes so things don't come back up and burn us. The thing is that LES valve is triggered by stomach acid. So if someone just has a small amount of stomach acid but not enough to trigger that valve to close, then that small amount is going to come back up and it's going to burn them. But also it's going to bring these partially digested foods back up, and those can go all the way back up the esophagus into the mouth and provide that person with weird tastes. And one of those tastes could be a metallic taste. So they may be having this metallic taste just from acid and partially digested food coming back up. But when there's not enough acid, maybe bile is refluxing back into the stomach, and maybe that's what they're tasting is bile that's now coming back up with that reflux, and bile has a very bitter taste. So there's a variety of issues that could change that taste disturbance problem when any of these functions are not working correctly. It's also very common for this bile to become too thick and sticky to flow correctly, and now it's not coming down to help us emulsify our dietary fats. And what's interesting about this when we're looking at these other connections is that the liver filters out a lot of the toxins from the body. We know that. But most people don't know that the liver puts those toxins into the bile, so that when the bile is carried through the intestinal tract to help us digest our food, it's also carrying toxins, so those can go out the back door when we poop like a champion. But when this bile is too thick and sticky to flow correctly, it's not taking out those toxins. So when we're looking at some of these other things that we were talking about before, about pesticides accumulating in the body, heavy metals, a lot of times it's just because the body's main detox pathway is not working correctly. The bile is not flowing correctly. And that's why you may see a lot of these people in the links that I'll provide in the description talking about, well, we see these taste disturbances when there's gallbladder problems, gallstones, or biliary sludge where that bile is not moving correctly. And that may be because we're just restricting the body's ability to detox. Another interesting thing when we're looking at these, gastroparesis and reflux things, where this study was showing us, oh man, when they really have this symptom real bad, it really magnifies these taste disturbances. Well, we'll put a link in the description below for our video on gastroparesis that explains that that's usually from a lack of stomach acid. Everything moves slower when it's not acidic enough to break down correctly. And then, oh man, your things aren't moving, they're paralyzed. But the reality is it's just not acidic enough to move like it's supposed to move. So when we're seeing that, when a lack of stomach acid, we're also going to see a lack of nutrients because the body is not acidifying food correctly enough. The bile is not flowing to help us emulsify dietary fats and access fat-soluble vitamins like A, E, D, and K. So we start to see nutrient deficiencies, which could be like zinc deficiencies. If you can't break down your food, you can't get the minerals out of your food. That's why you eat food, so to get those nutrients. So if you're not digesting them correctly, you can't get those nutrients. And oh, look, then we have zinc deficiencies. Maybe pesticides and heavy metals are accumulating too much because the bile's not taking out the trash. We also see that the body really needs enough minerals in this system, and then when it doesn't have enough, it will sometimes hold on to heavy metals because it's using those to help send signals from the brain to the body and the body back to the brain. And then all of a sudden, when you put enough minerals in the system, it's a lot easier for that person to let go of these heavy metals. So we see a wide variety of issues that can create this metallic taste issue, but a lot of them have the ability to go back to digestive malfunctions. So if you're dealing with any digestive symptoms at all, like burping or bloating or acid reflux or constipation or diarrhea or nausea or indigestion, like maybe food just kind of sits there like a rock in your stomach for 6 hours, or even acne or skin issues. All of those are signs that digestion is not working correctly. And if you have those signs and you have this metallic taste problem, well, now you have a place to start. Now you're not just throwing darts at the remedy dartboard. You can say, okay, let's see if I can take steps to improve these digestive malfunctions and see, does that improve the taste disturbances? And we have a totally free digestion course that kind of walks you through figuring out which aspects of digestion are not working right for you and steps you can take to correct those. And we'll put a link in the description below for that totally free course. So I hope this helps you understand some of the things that can cause this metallic taste and give you some clues of what may be creating it from you, because it can really be different from person to person. But since this gallbladder and bile issue is really common and has the ability to create a variety of these issues, you can jump over right now and check out our video on 5 steps to improve bile flow to see if that gives you any steps that you can get into motion now. I can't wait to hear about your results.